Hello, I'm Stephen, and we're coming from the council circle today. As you can see over my shoulder, the makings of a bonfire, which in about 1 week will illuminate this space like nothing else could. Beings will be freed from the wood, and a grand tree will take its place in another world. And good morning once again. Today we're going to deal with pain, the healing of pain, where it comes from, and how we may cleanse old wounds. And we come with this subject today because so many of you have recently spoken about it and have asked me for my perspective on it. Let's begin by understanding that there are different genesis of pain. The pain of our physicality and our biologic being is somewhat different from psychic pain. Both can be deferred and show up in different places. But the physical pain of our existence is something that we're all familiar with. And much of it is derived by the conditions that life places in front of us, besides that long, windy road and the wear and tear it places upon us. This pain can often be diminished through both contemporary and traditional methods. Either the modern pharmaceuticals, there's even a parts department in these days. And on the more traditional levels, we have the Reiki, the acupuncture, the herbal remedies, hands-on and hands-off. And again, there are many different ways to effectively diminish pain in this respect. However, something to be reminded of is that when we are trying to cleanse pain and diminish it from our lives, it always requires our full participation. I think it's something that we look past today, but there needs to be a beginning where we seek advice and guidance, and then we must carry the ball. Ultimately do those things, whether it's a matter of losing weight, more exercise, more swimming, whatever it takes. Getting rest is so important. And the other pain that is so important today and shows up in different ways, which cannot be easily reduced without some severe personal and inner work, is what we will refer to as psychic pain. This shows up and percolates into our life as a result of a sense of loneliness, a sense of inadequacy, and a sense of being disconnected. Disconnected and separated from the context of life. While it takes many forms and can easily be deferred into our physicality, we often experience it subjectively as depression. Physically, it can influence us in our entirety, from heart disease to arthritis to one if not many of the cancers. So it needs to be understood. And speaking of pain, what we take from that in its most important way is that it is always a messenger. Pain is a voice which we must regard because it's telling us something and it's asking us to pay attention. In physical ways, it's often that we're using a tool or our vehicle in a wrong way, that we're abusing it. In psychic ways, it's reminding us of an aloneness, something that shows up as a tortured soul and broken hearts. And the process of cleansing and dilution must begin. These, I believe, are the best means to open up and through the full illumination of our conscience, to allow that which lies deep within that subconscious where these pains are always rooted to expose itself. At the same time, if we've made a commitment to face the right direction, when we begin our cleansing, illumination will pour in. Because just the fact that we're making an effort allows life to respond to our call. And that really is what's going on here. The message is to become grounded, more relevant, to take your life seriously and understand its value. Some of the things that are often required in the cleansing act is a means in which to look at it, to allow ourselves to see whatever these old wounds might have been and caused by it, allow that to percolate up. At the same time, we're saying hello, but we're also saying adieu, goodbye. And yet, I don't want to diminish the difficulty factors involved in this, because these issues of our recent history and even distant past can be locked into our subconscious like a rooted tooth. A tooth that's badly decayed needs to be removed, but extraction is never easy. And that I want to be clear about. It's not necessarily an easy process. But remember, the tears that will accompany will be released into ultimately a laugh. And as cleansing begins, as we show the willingness to allow these old frights, fears, regrets to surface, the process of dilution can occur. And dilution is the most important, because in place of that fairly secretive, rooted issues is now pouring more illumination, which comes directly from our testimony in life's affairs, in her friendships, in her love, in our compassion. And it reminds us, friends, that healing of any sort, wound repair, is best accomplished through a relationship. It's interesting how that works, because we often take, when we say that we can know ourselves, that's one thing. But to heal ourselves, although we must be fully participant, it doesn't always occur with our single volition. I've had a lady recently who's struggling mightily. And she comes and speaks very clearly of her loneliness. And she says, "Stephen, I am so alone." Friends, it's true that the things that separate us from life and meaning are numerous, but the gifts of life are even more prevalent. So I made a suggestion that she make her way to the SPCA, find a mangy, abandoned dog, and she'll not longer be totally alone. Again, the relationships in our lives are so, so important. Because when we have truly a relationship, we create in a mystical way a sphere of oneness between ourselves and the other. That sphere is new and open to life's masterdo. Compassion lives in that sphere, meaning and friendship. When they pour in, they have powerful cleansing properties that radiate then from the relationship into our inner being. And this is also important to remember if you contact a healer. And there's an interesting thing, friends, about this thing of pain. When we're willing to look at it and address it, a healer or teacher will always arrive. Always. It may not be what you thought it would be. I had another person tell me that her dog taught her more about life than anybody. But there are meaningful and beautiful practitioners of the healing arts. And they go from many, many different descriptions and techniques. Again, if this healer is working for you, it will be clear. You must feel a tingle. The relationship should be very verbally and cognitively simple, because what we're talking about is the transferring of sustenance into you through another. The relationship should not ultimately be a dependency, and yet it needs to be a relationship. Healing occurs best in that way. So if we come back to that inner cleansing, we come to a point where things begin to change. If we're willing to look at it, and at the same time, if we're putting new meaning into our lives, what we referred to as facing the right direction, things will begin to change. Initially, just the way you feel. Some pain will begin to be transcended, and it won't be so obvious anymore, on both the psychic and the physical varieties. Secondly, the things you think, say, and do will be sweeter and kinder. You will find less reason and need to control your world. And here is perhaps the biggest gift of all. You're starting to come back to that place of basic trust where the world around you can be seen in clearer and more beautiful ways. When a teacher enters your life in the call of pain and in the purpose of healing, he will fit you, or they will fit you, with a different lens, a way to see things differently, a way to have another point of view. And for me, I hope that's what the message of Moore allows our world, to see this longer, beautiful view of life. But again, that teacher can come in the form of your neighbor. And it always opens up the possibility that we will see things a little differently. Call for the healing, allow the pain, and allow it to be transcended. As we come to this place, the need of our subconscious can become essentially mindless and without a lot of attention. But in the cleansing aspect, we have to offer it the opportunity to allow us to see. I had another friend who once said, "Stephen, I get your message, and my life has changed. I'm facing the right direction. So why do I need to deal with all of this heavy stuff?" Heavy stuff, again, being these rooted, shadowy figures of his unconscious, subconscious. And I said, listen, the subconscious is an important part of our house of life. And we must allow the cleansing, which removes the things that influence how we see and feel our world, to avoid a house divided. But once we've come to that point and have begun the process, the subconscious takes care of itself. More meaning and illumination enters. Slowly these old tooth are torn, uprooted, and there's no longer any space for them. This brings us collectively to the biggest hope, namely that our lives will provide as a fountain as we understand more clarity, and this fountain can nurture many who thirst. And our lives can become like an oracle, where simple but deep truth are spoken. So remember that, friends, that we stand here together on this planet, and there's pain of many sorts and types. All of them require a relationship. They're all at their best a message. And they can all be transcended with a willing effort. And you say of this biologic pain, which becomes almost unbearable physically for so many people. Well, as we clarify what matters most in our lives, even that can be diminished. And we're going to come back in the next session and deal with the really difficult pain, that which appears as deep and rooted, unmovable, and intractable. We're going to have the courage to talk about some really bizarre treatment and face that difficulty. We're going to talk about ice baths and primal screams and electric shock. And we're also going to deal and contemplate the act of suicide. What does it mean? What does it say? And how throughout the journey of life is it acceptable? So in the meantime, let us celebrate our connection, dance around the fire, and join in on this Harvest Festival just but a week away. Thank you.